actually be prepared for it to be live.
We are live, and Christina's getting much better at it. My name's Dr. John Robinson.
And I'm Dr. Christina Bosch.
And we are known as...
The Sex Docs.
The Sex Docs. So... Hi.
Insult me, hello?
It's so personal, right?
Uh-huh.
Today we wanted to talk about hypnobirthing. And is it possible to have no pain with birth? That was the sort of the theme that I wrote there, and we'll see whether or not Dr. Bosch can answer that question, the full disclosure and truth, and whether or not you can actually give birth with no pain.
Yeah.
Is it possible? So we're doing this because happy birthday to our little girl Ilora, who just turned 4 a few days ago. We've talked about this before in the past, this idea of a calm type of birth where you maybe can minimize the pain or maybe even eliminate it altogether. And is that even possible? Mm-hmm. And so I think...
why is that even important?
Well, why was it important for you? Or was it important for you?
Well, I guess let's back up for a moment. Let's talk about just some basic proper terminology. Let's start with the notion of what natural labor is, or natural birth. It's come to mean nowadays just anyone who delivers birth vaginally versus a cesarean. But really, when we talk about natural labor, what we usually mean is that there's no chemical intervention to help with the pain management during labor. Such as an epidural, which is probably the most common. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And then, of course, we're excluding cases of emergency. And we're excluding anywhere where the baby is perhaps physically deemed not strong enough to come out the labor canal on their own. So we're just talking about the world of like the regular standard birthing, right? For us, it was important for a few reasons. One of them is people say to me, because we delivered both of our babies, we did natural labor, so it was vaginal births, non-scheduled.
I didn't do it. She did it.
Oh, he did it, which I will explain. He definitely helped, which I will explain in a moment. So they were non-scheduled vaginal births with no pain intervention whatsoever, no chemical pain intervention whatsoever. And I did it. Everyone says, oh my God, you're so strong, you're so this. And I always kind of laugh about that. And I think, well, goodness, thank you. But this is the way people were doing it forever and ever and ever before that. But really, I did it. Perhaps one of the main motivators was out of cowardice, because to me, the thought of doing chemical intervention was a little bit scary for me. I'm very sensitive to medicines, so I didn't want to take that risk when I was in the process of delivering. We also did it for the purpose of, we strongly believe in the mental and emotional relationship that the birthing experience leaves. It's almost like an imprint. And in many ways traumatic for the baby. Traumatic in the sense that you go from this wonderful, warm environment where everything is taken care of to bright lights, cold air, people touching you, etc., etc. So we wanted to really facilitate as easy a process for the babies as possible. Right, that would be our main things.
That was the main sort of reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
And then so part of the story for us was we came across this concept called hypnobirthing, mm-hmm. which is utilizing hypnosis in the sort of purest sense of the word.
In purest sense, meaning it's a meditative state.
Meditative state, yeah. It's not, hypnosis we think of.
We weren't under trance or anything like that. It was really just a
stage kind of thing where you're going to start, clucking like a chicken or barking like a dog because someone suggests you're supposed to. These are mental suggestions through the power of meditation and intention in your thought process. And I think that was probably the biggest thing of it. We learned vocabulary and meaning because words carry meaning, they carry intention. Mm-hmm. And when we started, rethinking about it that way, that just set up, I think, a lot of our expectation about what we were going to experience.
Mm-hmm. They really focused on the notion that birthing is natural and that the body itself knows what it's doing, which I firmly believe we have a tendency to view pregnancy and definitely labor as almost like a disease process, like there's something wrong with the female, and that's definitely not the case. Obviously, birthing is one of the most natural things we do. You've heard those crazy stories where people didn't know they were pregnant until, like, literally they were in labor. So clearly there's nothing
Which
disease.
is always so bizarre to me. I don't know
bizarre.
how that is possible, but
it happens. And I think for us having that relationship with the labor process, that was like they would use words like surges instead of contractions, and it was a much more empowering and a much more peaceful vocabulary that I really liked. And it was one that if you're going to explore these options, you really want to have serious conversations with your loved ones about this, and ask them to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit with you, at least for the sake of respect for you, to say, please talk about it for me in this way. Because when the moment comes and you go into active labor, you really want to know that everyone is using as peaceful language as possible so that you can stay in that meditative state, right?
Yeah, I was thinking just now that it was such a sort of, I don't know, like a spiritual kind of metaphysical type of experience to some degree, but it was impressive, I think, is what it was. So when things are so impressive, sometimes we think it's otherworldly. But what happened, what I remember specifically, one of the things that we were taught, one of the things I was taught, was to help Christina through the process of whispering things in her ear and helping with that idea of what we were taught during the classes prior. So we were in the midst of this, and we were at Scottsdale Healthcare.
Right, we did a hospital
birth. It wasn't a home birth,
right,
like that. We think that's all.
Birth.
I think it's all great. It's just for us, we chose the hospital, and there we were in the middle of the hospital, which is a fantastic hospital, by the way,
and great staff.
Great staff. And it was well into the labor, and she's in the midst of a surge or contraction, and you can see all of this on the monitor. So it was a different physician that came in, like an on-call physician in the middle of the night or whatever it was for us, and that woman came in and she was watching the process, and Christina's in the midst of this major contraction because the doctor could clearly see it on the monitor. And all she was doing was sitting there breathing, and I was whispering in her ear, and she's just moving through the whole process. And the doctor got emotional because she's not used to seeing that. In general, they were not used to seeing what we were doing there. They're very open to it, but they just weren't used to it. They were used to this idea of people coming in with the expectation of pain, with the expectation it was going to be that. So for us, we just set up a different expectation. And anyway, it was just very impressive to see her, a very seasoned physician, kind of come in the middle of that and kind of get pretty impressed herself with all that. And Christina just did amazing through the whole thing.
Yeah, and then people always, they say, because the other thing they teach you when you're studying hypnobirthing is that it's not really pain, it's pressure. I would differ. It is pressure. It's true. It's the pain of pressure, just like if you have too much fluid in tissue, like if you've ever had a swollen, ankle or something that's so filled with fluid that it kind of offers pain, or for people who've had pleurisy or fluid in their lungs or something like that. There's pain associated with that, but it is pressure. It's definitely pressure. But there's freaking pain. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and say there isn't pain. I had a couple coming to Jesus moments, but I can't express to you enough how effective it was to just remind myself to take the tools that I had been given. And of course, you need a partner. And if it's not your spouse or your birthing partner, then let it be a doula or a parent or a sister or a best friend or whomever is in the room with you that is really going to aid you in this process. Because in this regard, you know how they say it takes a village to raise children? Well, it starts with day one. It takes a village. It takes at least one good stronghold person to guide you through this process. I believe I can do it on my own, but I wouldn't want to. And it wouldn't have been as spiritual or as pleasant. So yeah, it was definitely painful, but I made it through 26 hours with Ilora and 18 with Alessandra. And Ilora was an 8 pound, 8 pounds.
Felt like 18 pounds.
8 pound, 13 ounce baby.
She was no small kid.
That's not huge, but it's definitely not small. And I just breathed through it. I mean, literally, what was the magic? It was that. It was breathing through it.
Breathing through it. You one of the techniques you really like the balloon technique.
Yeah.
This is this idea of filling your stomach area like a balloon and kind of working through with air
and then releasing it. Because basically the notion is whatever visualization works for you, but the notion here is what can you do to help envision the baby that already has the wisdom to guide themselves down your birthing canal and out.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
I think that's really important about all this.
That's what it is.
This is so much to do with this idea of really trusting the process and knowing, like you had said, that people have been doing this for thousands of years or longer.
Since the existence
of people.
Of man.
And that if we just get out of the way, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, nature will take its course. And that there's a wisdom in the baby that we often, in medicine, we're often looking at things as an intervention of what's going on versus being present to the process and a facilitator to the process that's already happening. So especially in obstetrics, they tend to look at it, they're intervening for the sake of this disease process. But anyway, we have this idea that the baby knows what's it needs to do and how it moves in its own certain way. And I never looked at it that way, even looking at it from a natural standpoint, still thinking that it was so much to do only with the mother. And what we found that it was a lot to do with the partner, the mother, and very much the child and the child's own wisdom through all of that. These are just innate things that are there. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it really has been. I mean, I've had great pregnancies, I always think I look really cute when I'm pregnant. Apparently nobody else agrees. They're like, my brother, this is one of my favorite brother stories. My sister and I were pregnant at the same time. Our firstborns were 3 weeks apart. And she's in New Jersey, I'm out here in Arizona, so I missed a lot of her pregnancy since after a certain date, they recommend that you don't travel. And my brother was saying, oh my gosh, Anna was so cute when she was pregnant. He was like, Anna? But with a belly. And I was like, oh my God, also that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I looked so cute. And he was like, no, Chris. That looked like it hurt. I wanted to kill him.
Look, she looked amazingly beautiful. You were very cute.
I was ginormous.
With Ilora, she was born in early November, so you had to go through every last bit of heat. I mean, it was literally hot on the day she was born. The next day it cooled down. I mean, every last bit of Phoenix heat, you got it, and you got swollen from that.
I did, but these are other great things that we've learned that I'd like to share with you. I remember when I was doing my OB-GYN, my obstetrics and gynecology rotations in my residency, and I've mentioned her before, I believe. I worked with a brilliant nurse midwife that, used to do things like turn breeched babies. She would listen with her ear, not just a stethoscope. Really cool, really talented, old school physician. This was up at Yale. And I remember her being pretty consistent about the fact that on average, weight gain is 30 to 35. If the female is a little bit more petite, as I was pre-babies, that you can expect a little bit more weight. Well, to share with the audience, I gained 68 pounds with Ilora and 70 with Alessandra. Obviously, some of that was baby weight, placenta, etc. But
a lot of water.
Still, it's a lot of weight for me and on my frame. And it was amazing to see that my vitals didn't change. My blood pressure, even when I was in the midst of a contraction, wouldn't go above just normal. Maybe 125, 126 over not even 90.
That's a good point. Let me say, what Christine had said, that we were in labor with Ilora for 26 hours. And and I admit that the staff was a little nervous at times.
I didn't know
Not so much that she knew it, but they would sort of convey that to me. And the reason that they were okay with as long as it went was because her vital signs were so great the entire time, because she was so relaxed the entire time, and because
I was healthy.
Yeah.
I was doing my squats with my trainer up until literally the last day, as long as I can handle. With both girls, I went 2 weeks over. That's another tidbit for you out there. We say that pregnancy is 9 months. I don't know where we came up with that number, because really it's 40 weeks, which is 10 months. Plus, in addition to that, we have to understand that due dates are somewhat arbitrarily assigned. They're based on a basic mathematical calculation, which in general is accurate. But it's not accurate for everyone, especially anyone that has an irregular menstrual cycle or a longer menstrual cycle. So that was the other testament to my medical team and to my OB, that she didn't push it. She was monitoring me carefully. She was very diligent, but she didn't push it because I went 42 weeks with both girls. And she was respectful of the fact that I have a longer menstrual cycle, so she understood that the due date may be wrong. I just want to remind you out there that each pregnancy, never mind each woman, is individualized. So don't put these artificial parameters on what constitutes normal, assuming that you're healthy and that you're being monitored carefully. I think that you want to listen to your body quite a bit.
Yeah, and so in sort of wrapping up here, and to kind of summarize. And based on what you just said there, I think for those that are listening, that if you're wanting to get pregnant or you know someone you love that wants to get pregnant or is pregnant, make sure you're picking someone that's going to listen to you. I think what we're talking about here is listening to yourself and having a physician that's going to be able to listen to you during the process. And our OBGYN, Dr. Decker, I was going to say Decker. Dr. Decker was amazing with that, and she respected the fact that we came from an angle that wasn't precisely her own, and she was open to it, and we came with information. We came with an open mind from her perspective, and we melded those worlds together, and it was great. And so I think that's one summary piece. Another summary piece is to remind everyone that you can check this all out online. Hypnobirthing, you can look it up. There's classes you can find right here in the Valley and all over the country on how to do this process and how to get more in touch with you, with your body, to where you don't realize you're not pregnant. How are they not in touch with their body?
It happens.
So, but it is possible. It's a really, really cool story behind the whole thing. There's also on our blog on the Hormone Zone, there's an article called Hypnobirthing where we talk about this as well. So check that out, and just know that there's options.
Yeah, there's
with
options.
anything.
Yeah, and you don't have to choose between hypnobirthing and epidurals either. I mean, there's a whole world of gray in between. And then I guess my last tidbit of summary would be that healthy women make healthy pregnant women. So remember, this isn't a disease process. This is an opportunity for you to continue to live a health-conscious life. And for those of you that are not yet pregnant but want to get pregnant, start tending to the womb now. I mean, we work a lot with preconception for that reason.
For both men and women.
For both men and women,
I'm glad you brought that up, because you like to say prepare the vessel. I like to say prime the pump. I'll leave you with that. So yeah, both things. We got to prepare the vessel, prime the pump, and know that you definitely have answers. But here's definitely what we know for sure.
Hormones are sexy.
And
Ilora is wonderful. She's a wonderful, beautiful baby girl.
You took her to the...
she had her 4-year 4-year checkup. And she's so cute and generous. Okay, this is my little tangent. But she's so cute and generous because she really wants to say about how she's a big girl. She's, Mama, soy una niña grande. So I'm a big girl, Mama. I'm a big girl, Mama. And then I look at her like this and she goes, but I'm a big girl baby for you. I'm a big girl baby. Because she's always...
Yeah. She wants to be there, but she knows you love her.
She wants to be a big girl. She knows I love my baby, so
that's great.
She's nicer than I am.
So that's this week. I don't know what we're talking about next week.
I always forget.
Something good.
Thank you for sharing and listening to our personal story.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week.
Bye.